After 60, the food doing the most damage to your body may not be the one you fear the most. Curious. It may not be cake. Pause. It may not be ice cream. It may not even be table sugar. It may be the food people still call convenient, normal, even harmless. While it quietly exposes the colon to carcinogenic compounds, irritates the gut, and accelerates the kind of chronic inflammation that makes aging feel faster, heavier, and harder to reverse. Size. And here's the part most people never get told. Pause. The danger is not just what this food does in one meal. It is what it does when it becomes routine, when it becomes breakfast, lunch, snacks, late-night hunger, travel food, comfort food, recovery food, the food you reach for when you are tired and do not want to think. And after 60, that matters far more than it did at 30, because now the body is less forgiving. The gut lining repairs more slowly, muscle is easier to lose, inflammation is more likely to stay switched on, blood sugar control is often less flexible, and the silent wear and tear happening inside the body can build for years before symptoms finally appear. So today, I want to show you what may be the worst food pattern after 60 for cancer risk, gut inflammation, and faster biological aging. And the answer starts with one major culprit: processed meat, bacon, sausage, hot dogs, deli meats, ham, pepperoni, salami, and the ultra-processed meals that usually come packaged around them. Now let me be precise, because precision matters. This is not about fear. This is not about saying that one bite causes cancer. And this is not about pretending one food alone explains all disease. But if you look at the research honestly, processed meat stands out in a very serious way. And when it is part of a broader ultra-processed food pattern, the damage may extend beyond the colon into the gut microbiome, the immune system, metabolism, and the very biology of aging itself. That is where this gets more important after 60. Most people think the biggest food enemy is sugar because they have heard that sugar feeds cancer. But that idea is too simplistic. All cells use glucose. Your brain uses glucose. Your muscles use glucose. Healthy cells and cancer cells both rely on fuel. So the real story is not that sugar uniquely feeds cancer in some magical way, while other foods do not. The real story is deeper. Certain food patterns may create the internal conditions that cancer, chronic disease, and accelerated aging seem to like most. More inflammation, more insulin resistance, more oxidative stress, more visceral fat, more disruption in the gut, more strain on the repair systems that are supposed to protect you. And processed meat, especially when it is eaten often, may sit right at the center of that storm. Here's why. Your colon is not just a passive tube where food passes through. It is a living surface. It is lined with cells that turn over constantly. It is home to trillions of microbes. It is a barrier, a communication network, and an immune training ground all at once. That means every meal sends signals. Some meals support repair, some support microbial diversity, some help produce beneficial compounds like short-chain fatty acids, which nourish the cells lining the colon and help regulate inflammation. But processed meat tends to send a very different message. When meat is cured, smoked, preserved, or heavily processed, compounds can form that may increase cancer risk over time. Nitrates and nitrites can contribute to the formation of N-nitroso compounds. High-temperature cooking can generate heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Heme-iron may also play a role by promoting reactions that damage the lining of the colon. That may sound technical, so let me simplify it. These foods can create a more hostile chemical environment inside the gut. And if that exposure becomes frequent, the colon is being asked to defend itself again and again and again. Repair, defend, repair, defend. And after 60, that repeated burden may matter more because the body's repair capacity is no longer what it once was. But cancer risk is only part of the story. The gut story may be even bigger. Because what many people call stomach trouble after 60 is often not just random aging. It may be the result of years of eating foods that starve beneficial gut bacteria, weaken the gut environment, and keep the immune system in a low-grade state of alarm. This is where ultra-processed foods enter the picture. Processed meat rarely travels alone. It usually comes with white buns, refined starches, seed oil-heavy sauces, sugary drinks, chips, frozen sides, preservatives, flavor enhancers, emulsifiers, and almost no fiber. And that combination is what turns a bad food into a dangerous pattern. Fiber is one of the most important tools your gut has for staying healthy. Beneficial gut microbes ferment certain fibers and create short-chain fatty acids, especially butyrate, which helps feed the cells of the colon, support the gut barrier, and regulate inflammation. So when the diet is low in fiber and high in ultra-processed food, you create a double hit. You stop feeding the helpful microbes, and you increase exposure to ingredients and food structures that may disrupt the gut ecosystem. That is a bad trade. A very bad trade. Because when the microbiome becomes less diverse and less stable, the gut lining may become more vulnerable. Immune signaling can become more chaotic. Digestive symptoms may increase. And inflammatory messages can begin leaking outward into the rest of the body. Not always dramatically, not overnight, but quietly. Bloating, irregular bowel habits, food sensitivity, more fatigue after meals, more central weight gain, more inflammation, more metabolic trouble, and this is where it gets deeper than the gut. After 60, many people are already dealing with what scientists sometimes call inflammaging. That means chronic, low-grade inflammation that tends to rise with age. Not the kind of inflammation you see when you cut your finger and it gets red. That kind is useful. That is acute inflammation. It helps you heal. The problem is chronic inflammation, the low smoldering kind, the kind that never fully switches off, the kind that contributes to insulin resistance, muscle loss, vascular damage, cognitive decline, frailty, and a greater burden of chronic disease. So now think about what happens when an already aging body is exposed day after day to foods that may worsen gut disruption, metabolic dysfunction, and inflammatory signaling. The body does not just age, it ages under pressure. And that pressure changes everything. Muscle becomes harder to maintain. Recovery from illness gets slower. Energy becomes less reliable. Blood sugar swings feel stronger. Abdominal fat becomes more stubborn, and the systems that should protect you begin spending more time putting out fires. This is one reason convenience foods can be so deceptive. They look easy on the outside, but they may create internal complexity your body has to clean up later. Now let's talk about the aging piece more directly, because this is where many viewers will recognize themselves. When people hear foods that speed aging, they imagine wrinkles. But the more serious form of aging is functional aging. Can you maintain strength? Can you preserve muscle? Can you think clearly? Can you keep your waistline under control? Can you recover from setbacks? Can you protect your independence? That is the aging that matters. And diets high in ultra-processed foods have been linked with outcomes older adults fear most: frailty, abdominal obesity, poorer cardiometabolic health, and even worse cognitive performance. Why? Because these foods tend to be easy to overeat, low in protective nutrients, low in fiber, and designed for reward rather than biological repair. They often spike appetite instead of satisfying it. They can drive calorie excess without nourishment. They make it easier to gain fat while losing muscle. And after 60, that combination is especially dangerous, because the real enemy is not just weight gain, it is the shift in body composition. Less muscle, more visceral fat. And visceral fat is not passive storage. It behaves like an inflammatory organ. It releases signaling molecules that can worsen insulin resistance and amplify the chronic internal stress that drives disease. So now you can see the full chain. A processed and ultra-processed food pattern may disturb the gut. A disturbed gut may worsen inflammatory signaling. Chronic inflammation may worsen insulin resistance. Insulin resistance may promote fat gain, especially around the abdomen. Visceral fat may further intensify inflammation. And suddenly the sandwich, the sausage biscuit, the microwave meal, the deli wrap, the fast food breakfast, and the nightly packaged snack are no longer separate habits. They are one biological story, and it is a story many people have been living for years without realizing it. Now here is what most people never hear. The goal is not to become afraid of food. The goal is to stop normalizing food that keeps your body in repair mode all the time, because your body wants stability. It wants clean signaling. It wants enough protein to maintain muscle, enough fiber to support the microbiome, and enough micronutrients to keep repair systems functioning. Which means the solution is not just subtraction, it is replacement. If you simply remove processed meat but replace it with sugary cereal, crackers, and low-fat snack bars, you have not solved the real problem. You have to rebuild the meal. So let's make this practical. If processed meat is showing up daily, that is the first target. Not because you have to be perfect, not because one breakfast ruins your future, but because repeated exposure matters. Start by cutting processed meat from daily use to occasional use, and for many people, the best first step is a simple 14-day reset. No bacon, no sausage, no deli meat, no hot dogs, no pepperoni, no packaged meat snacks, just 14 days. And during that time, replace those foods with real protein and real fiber. Eggs with vegetables, plain Greek yogurt with berries and nuts, if dairy works for you. Oatmeal with chia seeds and walnuts. Lentil soup, beans with olive oil and herbs. Chicken, salmon, sardines, tofu, or minimally processed turkey. A large salad with extra virgin olive oil. Steamed vegetables with a protein source and a side of legumes or intact grains. Why these foods? Because they do more than remove harm. They add repair. Beans and lentils feed beneficial microbes and support steadier blood sugar. Berries provide polyphenols, plant compounds that may help calm oxidative stress and support the gut ecosystem. Olive oil supplies anti-inflammatory compounds and healthier fats. Nuts provide satiety, minerals, and metabolic support. Fermented foods, when tolerated, may help support microbial balance. Oats and other fiber-rich foods create the raw material your gut bacteria use to produce beneficial compounds. In other words, you are not just avoiding the problem. You are training the body toward a better internal environment. And this is where the results often surprise people. Because the first sign of improvement is not always dramatic weight loss. It may be better bowel regularity, less bloating, more stable energy, fewer cravings, a flatter midsection, less afternoon fatigue, less heaviness after meals. That matters. Because when the body starts receiving better signals, it often responds quickly even before major lab changes show up. Now, I also want to be responsible here. Food is powerful, but food is not chemotherapy. Food is not surgery. Food is not a substitute for appropriate cancer screening, colonoscopies, medical care, or treatment. If you have unexplained weight loss, blood in the stool, persistent digestive symptoms, severe fatigue, anemia, or a strong family history of colon cancer, you need medical evaluation. Do not try to out-diet a serious symptom. And if you are older, frail, underweight, living with kidney disease, cancer, or major digestive illness, dietary changes should be personalized with your clinician. That said, many people do have far more power than they realize. Not the power to control everything, but the power to stop adding fuel to the wrong fire. And that may be the most important message in this entire video. The worst food after 60 is often not the one that looks indulgent. It is the one that looks ordinary. The processed meat in the breakfast sandwich, the deli slices in the everyday lunch, the hot dog at the quick dinner, the packaged meal when you are too tired to cook, the snack that barely feels like food but quietly becomes part of your biology. That is the danger, not one moment, a pattern. And patterns are what shape aging. So if you take one idea from this video, let it be this. After 60, every meal is either making life easier for your gut, your metabolism, and your repair systems, or harder. And the foods most likely to make life harder are the ones that combine processing, low fiber, poor nutrient quality, inflammatory burden, and repeated convenience. That is why processed meat and the ultra-processed food pattern around it deserve real attention. Not because fear helps, but because truth helps. And once you see the pattern, you can change it. You can build breakfasts that protect muscle instead of inflaming the gut. You can build lunches that feed your microbiome instead of starving it. You can build dinners that support strength, energy, and healthier aging instead of dragging the body deeper into inflammation. That is not extreme. That is intelligent aging. So here is my challenge for you. For the next 14 days, remove processed meat and replace one ultra-processed meal each day with a whole food meal built around protein, fiber, and healthy fat. Then pay attention. Watch your energy. Watch your digestion. Watch your cravings. Watch how your body responds when you finally stop asking it to fight the same food battle every single day. Because your future health may not depend on one miracle food. It may depend on the foods you stop treating as normal. If this message hit home, comment, "I'm making the swap," and tell me which food you are cutting back first. If you want more science-backed videos on inflammation, healthy aging, gut health, and what really matters after 60, like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still thinks convenience food is harmless. This is Dr. Becker, and I'll see you in the next one.